I have everybody at the right angle now to see everything. So if you're watching from this side, you can see the mobile phone here. I'm going to be making quiche today at home, so I decided to record it. The 50 years, I don't know why, because you're going to be doing this as part of your project. So yeah, so one of the first things you have to remember is about the baking guidelines, okay? Some of the guidelines for home baking. So one of the first things you have to do with baking, when you're baking anything, it's like kind of slightly working backwards. So one of the things you're going to have to do in the recipe is looking at the temperature of the oven that's required. So set your oven at the correct temperature and get it heated up. That's one of the first things. Also check the shelves in the oven to make sure that they're set before you even turn it on. Check the shelves first. Take out anything that you might have in the oven, because a lot of people store stuff in their oven. I know I do, and it's not unusual to keep trays. Sometimes people put pans and stuff, so take all that excess stuff out of your oven. Make sure the shelves are at the right position, and then put your oven on at the right temperature. And know the difference between having a fan oven and then having a conventional oven, because a conventional oven, you have the convection currents coming around inside it, and that means that the top part of the oven is cooler, the middle part of the oven is the mid temperature, and that's really what you'll see in a recipe. That's the temperature they're working with. The bottom of the oven is the cooler part, and that's stratification of temperature of the air currents. So what you have with the fan oven is it breaks up that stratification, so it mixes it all around. But what it also does, it actually raises the temperature. So if you see it for a conventional oven that it is 200 degrees, then bring that down to by about 10 degrees, bring it down to 190. So what I'm going to be looking at here, just in the first part, is getting organised. So I know I'm going to be cooking quiche, so I actually have it on at 180 in my fan oven. I have the shelves set. I'm going to make two different quiches. I'm making one with normal flour, wheat flour, and but I also won't be using dairy in it because I'm a vegetarian, so I'm going to use almond oil in it. I'm going to make it another one after, and because my son needs gluten-free products, I'm going to be using that, and I'll make another video and I'll talk to you about all those different types of flour that are used in that. So okay, the oven's on. The next thing we have to look at is the different types of dishes you have, and you might have a lot of different types of dishes at home that you can and can't use, and it's okay, it's fine. Just there's a few things to bear in mind when it comes to that, and it would be a dish like this, like if you're going to make a quiche or something that's like a quiche, and you need to you put a filling inside it. The thing to remember is then there's a chance that because it has very high sides on it, that the pastry could fall over into it. So if you're filling it, it depends. There's two things then you have to watch out for, and I'll talk to you about it in a wee second. I'll just show you this one. So this would actually be called a loaf tin. Okay, this one, this glass one, this is actually called a loaf tin, and I've used it to make quiche before. Okay. This one's called the flan tin, and it has a removable bottom. Some of them do and don't have removable bottoms all the time. Okay, like come up, and these are little mini flan dishes here. Little mini ones. And again, the bottoms of these are removable. Not everybody has these now at home. Okay, the bottom of these are removable here. I can take these out. So this just helps with taking it out. Now with pastry, what you might do is you might do something called baking something blind. So that depends. If you wanted to make something like a lemon meringue, you might bake something blind. I'll just put them out of the way. In that instance, this is where this becomes problematic if you wanted to bake something blind, because what might happen is then if you go all the way up the side with the pastry here in this, there is quite high probability the size of the pastry will collapse over. So if you're going to use something like this to make something like that you needed to fill in, and it was going to be a sweet dessert, I would cut down the edge of the pastry in it quite low, probably just about maybe 3 centimeters, about an inch up from the side. Okay, so it's about the same size as this dish here, as this flan dish from the side, to avoid it falling over. What I'm going to do with mine is I'm going to go all the way up the side on this glass dish, because I'm going to be filling it with egg mixture, and it's going to help to set it as the gluten in the flour sets, because remember, gluten is protein, and when we apply heat to protein, it sets the protein, and it's no different from any other protein, just that it comes from, in that it reacts to heat. It's just how it's come from the plant. Other molds you might have at home, these are little what's called Madeleine molds. Okay, these ones here, and you can make little bones in them. Now they're really not good quality, and this is where you can see the difference in the quality of steel and stuff that's used. I've never actually even got around to using these. So when stuff like that happens and it just deteriorates from sitting around in the cupboard, just wash and clean them, and then add oil to them. Leave them sitting there for a while, wipe it off with a cloth, and then re-add oil into it, and they're still fine to use. That's not a problem. You might also have silicone molds at home. This is a Bavarian mold. There's special desserts called Bavarian desserts. You can make them. This, you'll end up with a hole in the middle of it. Okay, this silicone. And I have this other mold here. It's a silicone mold as well, but I wouldn't go putting pastry too readily in it because it's so flexible. Okay, these are also silicone molds as well, little pastry cases, and these are great because you can use them over and over again, and it's not like the way you seen with the Madeleine molds there, that they're going to rust or anything like that on you. You can use these things over and over again. They go to quite high temperatures. You would see this silicone used with sugar making. You get this in mats as well, and it goes to really, really high temperatures. So it's just some things you might have hanging around at home now at the minute, if you're thinking, oh, I can't make a quiche, or what are my options for making a quiche at the minute. So any type of a tin. And what I meant to say about this is, like, I have other things that are this shape. They're terracotta dishes. So if you have something that is this shape and it's terracotta dish, you can still use this for pastry and for making quiche. That's not a problem at all. I mean, even if you have a lid of a Pyrex dish and it has sides on it at all, you can still use that. But I'm going to use this for the quiche that has gluten in it, and I'm going to, I'll use that for the gluten-free one, and then I'm going to use this for the quiche that has gluten in it. So one of the things I have to do is I have to prepare my tins in advance. So I have this little, it's a copper pot, and I have a small bit of starch in it already. Okay, so I just have it there on the cooker, and I'm going to heat up, and I have a silicone brush here, and I'm going to just have it over there. Okay, so again, I'm following hygiene rules when I'm baking. Okay, and I have everything on a plate off to the side. Okay, so just because we're at home, it doesn't mean that we don't follow any hygiene rules. Okay, so before you start baking, please wash your hands. You should have short fingernails. We're going to be making pastry. If you don't have short fingernails, go and make sure all the dirt is scrubbed from underneath your fingernails, because you're going to be putting your hands in the pastry and we don't want that transferring out into the pastry. So I'm just waiting for this to melt for a wee second, and then I'm going to prepare my tin. So the oven is on, that's hot. I'm going to prepare my tins. Now I'm just going to address another issue that some people might have at the minute, and I know this was happening and people are saying, Miss, I don't have a weighing scales at home. I actually myself have 2 digital weighing scales and the batteries are gone, and because of the conditions at the minute I'm not running out to buy batteries, just specially to do this morning. So again, okay, I have plate here and I have a spoon and a knife. Okay, so people have things, well, you might have stuff like this, and you might have seen these kind of things before. They're measuring spoons. These are really, really small ones, okay, which are, it's fine if you just need for a small amount, but we need bigger amounts. So I need to find a way for people who don't have weighing scales at home. Most people have measuring jugs, okay, and these things that I have here, what they allow us to do, these ones in particular have, like, 1 cup is 235 mils. Okay, two thirds of a cup is 150 mils, a half cup 120 mils, a teaspoon is 15 mils, and half a teaspoon is 2.5 mils. Now on some measuring jugs you will get the side of it telling you how much flour and sugar weighs out with this, like 235 mils or 150 mils, because the things have different densities, because sugar is a crystal structure, has more air between the molecules. It's going to be lighter than flour. Pick up a bag of flour, you feel how dense it is. Okay, so there's different volumes and stuff like that, so be aware that 235 mils or 1 cup of flour isn't going to equal the same amount of sugar. Okay, now my stork is melting away here. Now, like I said, we have to think in advance, so I have been thinking in advance about my pastry. So I have my margarine in the fridge, and what you have to remember about making pastry is it's the best way to make the best results out of pastry. Everything has to be cold. Okay, and if you're lucky enough to have cold hands, well and good, that's good for you. I have already put some water in the fridge. Some of the water is cold as well. It just gives me a nice crispy pastry. So anyway, looking at this for 1 minute. So we have a cup of flour. So I'm just going to vanish here for 1 second, because I'm also going to get a bowl. Now for pastry, we don't want to use self-raising flour. Okay, if you have self-raising flour, doesn't matter, but what's going to happen is your pastry is going to puff up. Okay, just be aware of that, but don't panic if you have self-raising flour and say, oh, I can't make the pastry. You can, go ahead, use it, it doesn't matter, don't worry about it. Okay, so just get that out of the way. What you want to use for it is plain flour. Okay, so the self-raising flour has baking powder in it. Okay, so remembering our rising agents are air, baking soda, baking powder, and yeast, which is a microorganism. So first of all, what I'm going to do for you, if you don't have weighing scales at home and you don't have these cups, okay, I'm going to fill one of these cups. And if this is just in case your measuring jug at home doesn't have those things up the side of it. Okay, I'm just shaking this so it's nice and level. Okay, I'm just giving it a shake so it's coming out nice and level. Just hold that. Going to level it off. Just put that out of the way there a second, and I'm leveling it off. I'm going to level it off with the, I'm going to level it off completely with the knife, okay? I'm going to tell you what it weighs on these weighing scales. I'd rather be doing it with the, so this is a balance scale. Okay, so on the balance scale that is 200 grams. Okay, so 235 mils of flour weighs 200 grams. So you know, if you have a measuring jug and you bought 235, it was just very slightly under it, but that's okay. Where's my spoon though? In here. Okay, so let's take a look at 150. My margarine is ready here for getting the tins ready. So after we do this, I don't have my bowl ready, so I need to go and get my bowl ready to start making the pastry. So let's get this out of the way. So again, I am going to level it off completely. Okay, so this is 2/3 of a cup. It's 2/3 of a cup, and it is 150 mils. And that comes out at, well, it's 120 grams. Okay, so the 235 was 200 grams and the 150 mils was coming out at 120. And just if you need a smaller amount again, this is 120 mils. Just tapping it down, so just taking all the air out of it and making sure it's full, and I'm leveling it off at the top. Okay, so it's nice and level at the top. Okay, and you can see it's 120 mils. Okay, that's the 120 mil one, and that gives me 80. Okay, so that's 80 grams. So you can mess around with these and multiply them up, or whatever you have to do. So that's 120 mils is 80 grams. I'm not writing these down, so I should be. So I hope you are writing it down. So 15 mils, which is really small, and you might be able to, and these scales aren't going to be accurate at that level. That's about 10 grams. Balance scale, so it's gonna lose its accuracy, but it's about 10 grams. Okay, so that's it in milliliters for flour. If you don't have a weighing scale. I'm just going to put this flour back in here because there's nothing wrong with it. Now, if you want to be a little bit more healthy, because that's just white flour, so the bran and wheat germ have been removed from that, okay? So we're just getting the carbohydrates. It has a little bit of fibre in it, but really not very much at all. It's mostly carbohydrates. So if we want to make it a little bit healthier, what you can do is you can get the likes of this flour here, which is, this is Howard's extra coarse whole wheat flour, and I use this to make brown bread with. Really nice brown bread. I also add in wheat germ, I add in bran. So you could take this recipe and you could add wheat germ into the pastry, or you could add bran in, or you could just get some of this bread and you could add maybe, if you were using 100 grams, you could add 25 grams of this, and just to increase the nutrient value of the B vitamins and that, okay, and the fibre as well. So just increasing the nutrition in your pastry, and it's still going to taste nice. The fact that you have a better flavour. So anyway, here's one of the, this is the rising agent baking powder. Okay, that's in self-raising flour. And the other rising agent, if I can just grab my hand quickly right now, that we use in scones or scones. I don't know if you can find out what it is. Okay, bread soda. Okay, bread soda. But this needs to be reacted with buttermilk. Okay, and something acidic to start the release of carbon dioxide, whereas the baking powder doesn't, because that has something in it that triggers the reaction already. Okay, it has bicarbonate of soda. Calcium sulfates. So anyway, that's that part. The next part we need to do is prepare the tins. Okay, so now you know how to weigh that out if you don't have a weighing scales at home. I should have actually have lifted this with a cloth, because there's a metal handle on this and it's actually hot. So I'm going to, now remember to get into the corners with this, because we can't lift this out. So if I'm cutting this later on, and even if it was like a sponge or something like that, you wouldn't, that's one of the danger areas, is the corner of it. Now you could put, just a second, fall over on me. You could put a bit of bacon parchment on the bottom, but you don't have to. Now, depending on what I was making, if I was doing a cake, I might put some flour inside this and shake it around. Okay, so just make sure you have that oiled completely. That one done. Let's cut it down a bit. So let's go into this tin. Now be careful, because this tin moves around the bottom of this, because it's removable. Now you get different types of tins. I have another one there called a spring form tin, and you could, if you have a small spring form tin, which I do, but they're high sided, and again you would have to cut the sides down, otherwise it will collapse in on top of the quiche. So there's a flan tin. Now you might have a flan tin and it'll be ceramic, and it won't, the bottom won't be removable, but that's fine, you can still cook the quiche in it as well. So like I said, you have lots of different options, and you might have different things at home, but this one, the bottom comes out on this, and I probably like would put about 2 eggs at the most in this one, because it's not very big, and these are measured across the way. This is the way these things are measured. Okay, so they don't measure the circumference. If you buy something, this is the way it's going to be measured. Okay, across this way, your tin. So that's the tins ready. Anyway, so just put that back on the dish there and get rid of that pot. And then the next thing I have to do, so the oven's on, the next thing I have to do is set up the ingredients, weigh out the ingredients properly. So that's one of your other things that we need to gather all the ingredients, equipment I have here. So I'm going to gather the rest of the equipment and the ingredients is the next thing, and I'm going to set that up, because the last thing you actually do is produce your product. in baking, and I'm going to clean down here. So I'm just going to turn you off for a wee minute.